Hey everyone, Bill Martin with United FC Furman. Just wanted to touch base real quick. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about some of the new mask requirements that we started to see from some states around us. A couple of states have started to go to a mask for players while they are participating in soccer. So the first state that we heard about was Vermont. They've been doing that all summer and all fall. And now recently North Carolina has gone to a mask mandate. So if you are playing soccer under the U.S. soccer umbrella, the North Carolina youth soccer umbrella, they are now requiring a mask on the soccer field while kids participate. That has triggered a lot of questions from me, our core staff, a lot of the members that we have in the organization around how effective is that? Is it safe for players to play a mask? What about breathing? What about exhaling? What about carbon dioxide? What about particles? What about just oxygen saturation? Can they do what they're doing while wearing a mask? And so started doing some research and came across a really good resource that we have within our club. I had a chance to interview Scott Murr. Scott is a professor at Furman University. He's an avid athlete, endurance athlete. He has raised his kids in our club, both Cameron and Kirsten, that played for us since they were little kids all the way through their entire soccer career. So this is a guy that knows elite level athletics, loves the game, loves our club, and was willing for us to chat with him a little bit and brought a lot of really good information to me that I wanted to be able to get back to our membership. So I hope this is valuable for you. We're going to post a couple articles in the description that may be helpful as well. And if you have any questions, I'm sure that Scott would not mind if you reached out to him, or if you wanted to reach out to us as well, please feel free to do that. Hope you enjoy the interview.
All right, I think we're all set. So listen, thank you so much for doing this for us. I thought to call you yesterday afternoon after I started getting all those emails about the masks, and I'm awfully glad that I did. I really am. So Scott, tell me, just start us off by just kind of giving us your credentials, education, where you studied, where you're teaching now. That'd be great.
Yeah. So actually, I did my undergraduate work here at Furman University. I worked in the fitness industry for, gosh, eight years or so before I went back to graduate school. I went to Slippery Rock University just north of Pittsburgh to get my master's in exercise science. And then I went to the University of Georgia to get my doctorate in exercise science. Since then, past 20 years, I've been teaching. 25 years, I guess I've been teaching. I've been back at Furman. It was never by design, but I've been teaching at Furman for the past 22 years. I teach in our health sciences department. And I teach exercise physiology type classes, testing type classes, EKG type classes. I'm also the director of our human performance lab. And as a long-time runner, triathlete, most of the classes that I teach tend to be related to exercise and performance. So I collaborate a little bit with some of our athletic teams here on campus. Actually, Doug Allison, we tested all of his soccer players. We did a maximal VO2 test on all of his players in January of this past year before things kind of came to a screeching halt in March. Do some work with the men's and women's basketball players. So from a human performance standpoint, whether it's me as an individual, as a runner, an endurance athlete, or whether it's the soccer team or basketball players, or of course my kids have both played soccer in the United Football Club for all their tenure, really it's all been about human performance. And so then when COVID kind of interrupted all of us, this past summer, sports medicine and even the athletic teams asked me, well, how is this going to impact our athletes if we're having to wear these masks? And so obviously since this past summer, we've all been wearing masks most of the time, and different environments.
Yeah. So let's jump right into that then. So tell me about the research project that you did there, that the university kind of tasked you with, and just kind of what was your objective? What were your findings on that?
So the question was, of course, here we are in June, and nobody's on campus, and nobody even knows what we're going to be able to do. And so, of course, our athletic department is eager to get our athletes back on campus. but we want to do so in a safe environment. So our athletic department, our sports medicine department said, look, what can we do? How can we have our students, it appears that wearing masks is the way to go, but can we do this? And so what they did was they asked me to evaluate some common masks. And so, you know, we've all seen the paper cloth type masks that are disposable. Furman actually ended up coming up with some sort of 2-ply mask. You know, can you wear that and exercise, and is that possible? And so what I did was I actually took these various type of masks, a paper disposable mask, what I'm calling a 2-ply mask, has 2 layers of fabric, as well as a 1-layer mask. And I actually ran on a treadmill and measured my, not just my heart rate, but I even put a mask on top of that to measure my ventilation, my airflow in and out of my lungs, my oxygen consumption, my CO2 production. And I would run for a couple minutes. I would change the mask, I would change the speed to simply see what impact this one variable of these masks had on my performance. My son was home this summer, so I got him to do it as well here in the lab with me. And so while that wasn't really a formal study, I was able to at least get a sense of what is it like to exercise with these masks on.
Yeah. Yeah. So what were the different findings between the paper mask, the single ply, the double ply?
So interesting question. And, you know, I don't think any of us who exercise or anybody who just lives in the world like wearing these masks, because they do make a difference. And I was really surprised. I really thought you would see a difference in heart rate. And you and I were just talking about cycling and running and effects of heart rate. And heart rate didn't seem to be the variable that was impacted the most. What tended to be impacted the most was simply ventilation, your ability to move air in and out of your lungs. VO2, your oxygen consumption, was affected slightly. Your CO2 production was elevated slightly. But it seemed that the paper disposable ones, ventilation was the most challenging, to actually ventilate and breathe. And so while you could do it for a minute, you know, to run for 30 minutes, to bike for 30 minutes, or to try to play basketball or soccer would be pretty difficult. You certainly could do it for a minute, but to try to do it for a prolonged period of time would be challenging, and something's going to have to give. You're going to have to cut back how long you're doing it for, or you're going to have to cut back your intensity. And of course, these get wet, they get heavy, and they make it even less desirable. The 2-ply didn't seem, it had the same impact, no real effect on heart rate. It did affect oxygen intake, your ability to bring oxygen in, and as well as your CO2 production. And then the 1-ply wasn't quite as bad at all. So kind of interesting, my son and I both felt the same way, that if we had to go out and exercise and we were going to do a high quality workout, we definitely wanted that 1-ply mask.
Yeah.
Then of course, this past fall, I've been teaching students in classes and having them work out and having them wear a mask. Of course, all of our athletes here on campus have to wear a mask during practice. So whether they're in the weight room lifting weights, or they're on the basketball court, or out on the soccer field practicing, they are having to wear a mask. And so I think we've all learned that we've got to change ever so slightly how we do that. But the interesting part is, you put one of these on, I mean, gosh, I hated the first part of the semester having to go and teach. And this is how I had to teach this semester, wearing a mask. And me wearing a mask for an hour, I didn't care for. But we've all had to do it, and we've all probably gotten a little bit more accustomed to it.
Yeah.
And our athletes and my students who exercised, I would think as soon as they got done would want to take it off. But as the semester progressed, everybody got to the point where they just simply became familiar and comfortable, where it didn't seem quite so bad.
Yeah. So let me back up a little bit. At the university this year, when they were in the classroom and the weight room, they're all wearing masks. Were they also wearing masks during training? So while they were playing, I mean, is the soccer team wearing a mask while they're training? Is the football team wearing a mask while they're training? They did that all fall long?
They have. Of course, our football team's not playing because they've pushed off to the spring, but our cross-country athletes, it's kind of there was a study done in Eindhoven University in the Netherlands. And so if somebody's running right behind somebody else, there actually tends to be more of a risk. So if you and I are going out biking and I just want to be health conscious, I'm not drafting you as much as I would benefit by drafting. Simply from a risk standpoint, I'm not. I'm actually going to try to bike beside you.
Right,
So
right.
cycling side by side or running side by side doesn't seem quite as risky. Now, of course, for our soccer players, whether they're here at Furman or they're a United Football Club player, um, you know, how close and how long are you surrounded by another person?
Yeah,
Those plays are very short. I'm trying to defend the ball. I'm trying to get past you to pass the ball to a teammate. So I would think that wearing a mask during practice, which is really what our players have been doing. Yeah. So there, to answer your question, Bill, sorry, our players are wearing a mask during all practices.
and been doing that all fall. Yeah. So
And
let me
they,
ask you a couple questions. When you and I chatted last night, we talked about sort of players acclimating to the mask. And you kind of described that you had to get used to it in the classroom. They've had to get used to it on the soccer field. It seems like acclimation is a big part of it. You would agree with that?
Indeed. And I think what's going to catch players. So, both of our daughters are playing this weekend in Raleigh. And while they've been wearing masks in school or, wherever they're interacting, they have not been playing soccer wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my daughter last night. I'm actually worried not about her physiology, but her comfort level and even these things on her ear. That's probably
Yeah.
going to be a bigger issue is this part, this happening.
Yeah.
I've actually was looking last night to try to find one that actually tied behind her head.
Yeah.
Because comfort is important. And if you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to perform as well.
Yeah.
So
Totally agree. Okay.
it's something
So
that
acclimating is good. And then I talked with some of our coaches last night, and I encouraged them to start training in a mask right away. So
absolutely,
we had several teams
absolutely.
that were out
In
there.
fact, after I learned yesterday that at this showcase this weekend that they're going to have to wear a mask, I actually called my daughter and I said, "Look, go out and run today, run 2 miles and put a mask on, just so you get used to it."
Yeah. So what was her experience with that? Did she feel like at some point she did start to get used to it during that run, or did it make her crazy the whole time?
Uh, Again, because she hasn't been doing that, 15, 20 minutes isn't really a good enough one-time period. And so if our daughters can practice tonight for an hour with that mask on,
Yeah.
that will certainly help them. So on Friday when they're playing, it won't be a brand new and novel thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just make it where you don't think about it. I'm thinking about not this mask, not my ears, but the ball and where are my players and who's open.
Yeah. Well, and I will tell you, just from an acclimation standpoint, we've had to wear masks while we've been coaching all year. And for the first half of the season, the mask made me absolutely crazy. And now I don't think about it. Before I was pulling it down to make coaching
That's
points and
right.
having to put it up, and now it's just part of the equipment that we've become accustomed to. So acclimation obviously just takes time, and we've encouraged the kids to start training in masks so they can prepare for it. Maybe a little experimentation when it comes to masks. Try the paper mask, try single ply, try double ply, try tie behind your head, try rubber band behind your ears. Just try to see what works for you. It seems like any of those masks didn't inhibit performance, but your perception of your ability to inhale and exhale and move that air, it seemed like that was the difference in those.
I definitely think that there's really two factors. One is simply your ability to ventilate, and the less fabric, 1 ply versus 2 ply, it's easier to ventilate. Now, the drawback with that is it may not be quite as protective. But again, if we've got players playing outside in fresh air and they're not with one person for an extended period, because these girls are running around, these players are running around, I am not worried about my daughter playing a soccer game wearing a 1-ply mask for that game.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
So
Again, she needs to feel comfortable. So again, it's the ventilation component and it's the comfort component.
Right, and then together. Okay. I think as I've talked to people in our staff and some of the parents that are looking now at participating with a mask on, it seems like the comfort part of it wasn't their bigger concerns. It seemed like some of them had heard some early reports around, don't wear a mask during exercise. It isn't, you're not going to get the oxygen you need. I think we've seen enough studies, and you have some personal experience with saying, yes, you are getting the oxygen. Some people worry about, what am I inhaling through that mask? Fibers? Is that getting into my lungs? Is that causing trouble? What have you experienced, or what have you seen from some other research that's been done? Is it, from an inhalation standpoint, is it unsafe to wear that mask during, or are you finding that it is safe to wear a mask during exercise from a what am I getting into my lungs standpoint?
So before I even answer, I just want to make sure that we're talking the same thing, and I'm certain we are, but there are some masks that are designed to be restrictive that people will wear in a gym that they will oftentimes call altitude mask, that they are trying to train their lungs. Now, we're really not talking about those restrictive breathing, purposefully restrictive breathing masks.
Yeah.
And the evidence on those is actually pretty suspect that those make a difference. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about these masks that are simply meant to reduce the risk of the transmission of these aerosol viruses. Now, we're pretty fortunate here in Greenville that we can cycle and run year round without being terribly cold, but there's always the occasional day where it's really cold outside and you might wear a balaclava, or I might wear a balaclava just so we can go out and bike or run, and we are not breathing in this super cold air. Mm-hmm. And they've been making sports apparel for so long that I don't think there's any evidence that supports risk of whether it's CO2 buildup or even fiber that would be an alarm for you to go out for a 90-minute bike ride, or for somebody to play soccer for 90 minutes. It's actually going to put us at risk.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other thing that you mentioned when we talked last night, and then a little bit earlier, was just potentially limiting the amount of time that you are exerting yourself with that kind of level. So we talked to our coaches a little bit about turning substitutions over a little bit sooner. If we can go run and ride for 90 minutes straight and not worry about it, that acclimation, getting accustomed to having to move air through that mask, you would say give the kids a little earlier breaks, a little more often while they go through that acclimation period.
I mean, Bill, I'm not a soccer player. Of course, I've been watching my kids play soccer all their lives, and obviously most of these girls, when they're playing for the ball, they're running at full speed. So that's a pretty high intensity exercise. And while you might be able to do that, if my team doesn't clear the ball and get it down the field and I've got a chance to recover and I've got to bounce back and do that again and again, that is going to impact me. Yeah. So I do think that depending on the nature of the game, coaches would probably be best served by doing more frequent substitutions.
Okay. Acclimation.
If the player's going to keep the intensity level up, they're going to have to get some more rest.
Yeah. Okay. Acclimation to the mask, experiment with the mask a little bit, coaches being a little quicker to roll substitutes over while we're going through those kinds of things. Those are the ideas that you've got. You're not concerned about, am I going to be inhaling carbon dioxide? Am I inhaling particles that are going to be damaging to me long term? Scott,
we try to make evidence-based decisions, and there is no research and evidence-based decisions that support those two concerns.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other, and I can certainly put links into this video, any other studies that you've seen out there that you thought were interesting that collaborated what you're finding personally?
I think the only other one, and I was talking to my daughter about this last night as well, is, you've got different material. So cotton, we sleep on cotton sheets because it's comfortable. So a cotton mask might be comfortable on your face, but a cotton mask is going to get wet quicker. Whereas some of these sports performance apparel have these moisture wicking properties. Mm-hmm. So I think the issue then becomes is if your mask is saturated, well, now you exhaling vigorously through a saturated mask is kind of like a cough.
Yeah.
So I was asking my daughter last night and this morning, how many masks do you have? Let's get all your masks, let's clean them, So that when we go out of town this weekend, you've got multiple masks and you can switch them out.
Yeah.
And so I think the other thing that we're going to simply need to do is after a game or after practice, is simply make sure we wash them, launder them, and make sure they're clean and dry. So if you can, during the course of a game, at least switch them at halftime, that would probably be a wise strategy. I mean, nobody wants to put on a wet mask.
Yeah. Those are two really good ideas. I had not thought through those. Having multiple masks and then being deliberate about either disposing of them or washing them. I mean, I will tell you that I've been guilty of not disposing of that plastic mask or the paper one. And you get to training and you got to put a mask on somewhere, and on
Right.
goes the older mask. So those are important. So okay, acclimation, experimentation with the masks, more frequent substitutions, having multiple masks during the game,
Yes.
maybe changing at halftime, and then being deliberate about washing them. Those are all super helpful for me. So
Yeah, I think those would be 5, however many that was. I think that'd probably be 5 key things to share with coaches and players.
yeah, okay, great. So you've mentioned this along the way here during our conversation, but both of your kids grew up playing soccer in our club, and both of them played since they were little kids all the way
They
through their
did.
entire soccer career, which I've enjoyed watching them both play. And I think at some point I've either coached them or had them play
Yep.
with our kids. Beside your credentials and your research and what you found from other research studies, you're a dad whose daughter is going to North Carolina this weekend. From what I'm seeing and hearing from you, you're not afraid to see her put on a mask and go play soccer for 90 minutes, and her being exposed to any additional risk than she would have been at any other time.
No, not at all. Knowing that that all players are going to have masks on, whether they're sitting on the bench or they're on the field, they're going to be outdoors.
Yeah.
And they're going to be moving around. They are not going to be talking face to face to somebody for 15 minutes, 10 minutes. The CDC guidelines just recently changed to a 10-minute exposure. So no, I'm not worried at all.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's
Well,
also
great.
been my experience that even parents have actually my wife and I have been to our games, and well, as much as we like to talk to the other parents, we've kind of been sitting by ourselves.
Mhm.
And so as much as I'd like to talk with the other parents, I think we've all approached this with a healthy and safe approach.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I've got no concerns about this weekend.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. So this is coming from North Carolina. I think the only other state that was using a mask before this was Vermont. They did it all fall. North Carolina, just in the past 24 hours, has issued these recommendations or mandates. I don't know which one they are, but bottom line, I think anybody in North Carolina is going to be playing with a mask. And I don't know whether that comes south and we're doing that in South Carolina at some point or not. But I really appreciate your time and your expertise and just experience with athletics and then our club in particular. I mean, I know your kids love the game and have enjoyed playing it, and the combination of your experience and what we're going through is really valuable to us right now. So thank you so
No,
much. I
I'm
really do.
glad to
Really
be
do
a
appreciate
part. My kids have had wonderful experiences, and I'm glad to help in any way that I can. Again, I'm not a soccer player, but having been on the sidelines for 10 plus years,
Yeah.
I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
Great. Scott, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yep. And I hope to see you on the sideline this weekend.
I'm sure I will. Take care now.
All right.
See you later.
Yep.